Let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Welcome back, friends of Ai4Autism. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the piece, How to Talk and Write About Autism, on the National Autistic Society's website. I really like this piece, and I remember the first time taking a look at it last year. And I've always wanted to do a video on this, and since then, when I came back to this website, this particular page, I noticed a lot of changes, and that's brilliant because I imagine the NAS constantly updates it as it gets greater feedback from the autistic members of society and other folk as well. So let's take a look. Let's begin. The article is entitled How to Talk and Write About Autism. The National Autistic Society is here to transform lives, change attitudes, and create a society that works for autistic people. Working with journalists and producers is crucial to this work, and we have produced the following guidance to help you make sure your reports are as accurate and sensitive as possible. The guidance is based on our language research on the preferences of autistic people, their families and professionals, as well as the feedback and insight we get from our supporters and wider work. Guidelines. The most important thing to remember is that many autistic people see their autism as a fundamental part of who they are. So it's important to use positive language. And if you are referring to a particular person or group, ask them how they would prefer to be described. This preference should take precedence over the recommendations outlined below. And before I do go into the recommendations outlined below, just to mention, I remember many moons ago having a conversation with one of our autistic interviewees, and I remember later on having a conversation about the use of language and how I use language, because before I would start interviewing autistic members of our community, I would write things like, this person has autism, rather than saying this person is autistic. Now at the time I really didn't think much of it, but then I'd got some feedback from the autistic community. Okay, that's enough of me. Let's take a look at what the guidelines do and do not suggest. So do say autistic adult, people, child, person, child on the autism spectrum, is autistic, is on the autism spectrum, has an autism diagnosis, disabled person, person with a disability, disability or condition. Asperger's syndrome is a form of autism. And they also mention how to pronounce it here. I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong. I think I should check that out. Talk about the autism spectrum and the varying challenges and strengths people have. Not autistic, neurotypical, autistic people, their families and friends, people on the autism spectrum, their families and friends, support or adjustments, and lastly, traits or characteristics. Now that's the do's list, and you might even have some suggestions of your own. And if that's the case, please do get in touch with the NAS. I'm sure they'll be delighted to hear from you, or even just post it in the comments below. Let's move on. Things not to say. Has autism. Person, child, adult with autism. Unautistic. An autist. An autie. An aspie. Suffers from or is a victim of autism. Retarded, mentally handicapped, backward, mild, severe. Disease, illness, handicap. Asperger's syndrome is a mild, rare form of autism. High functioning or low functioning. Severe or mild. Normal. People living with autism. And treat symptoms. Right, and now how many of these have you and I done? I can pinpoint specific instances where I've used some of these don't language, and it's amazing the things I've learned from the autistic community, which has, I would like to think, positively shifted me into the do segment. So here's something to keep in mind when you're writing or talking about autism. And let's all come together to create a better understanding and a greater environment to support everyone. Alright, thanks for watching. Remember, love, life, and AI, as well as positive language.